everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Alder Hour. We had a week off last week, a week off from the live show. We did broadcast a fascinating interview. If you missed that, we're back. We're live, and it's always a pleasure to be here. I'm Matt Alder from Recruiting Future, and I host the Alder Hour. This show is part of the Purple Acorn Network. If you want to find out more about Purple Acorn, head over to purpleacorn.com. After the show, watch the show first, and you can find out everything about them. Follow them on LinkedIn. Lots of other great shows also live streaming over there. This episode is also available as a podcast wherever you listen to your quality podcasts. Now, we are a live show this week, so please join in the comments. We will try and read them out as they come in. We've got some really interesting topics and an excellent guest, so please get interactive with the show. Right, that's enough of me rambling at the start. Let's kick off, and I would like to say a big hello to my two amazing co-hosts. And there they are. Hi, Rhona. How Jocelyn? How you doing?
Hi, Matt.
We're doing well.
Yeah, fantastic. Jocelyn, you've got a new microphone. You look like every inch the podcaster there.
I know. I'm official now.
Fantastic. And Rhona, how are you?
I'm doing good.
Yeah, what's everyone been up to? Not here last week. What's been going on?
Well, last week we weren't here, but we did end up doing a show for the Recruiting Future podcast, right, Matt?
We did.
So I still got to hang with you last week.
We did actually, yeah. We did a whole live a live kind of roundup episode, which was great. Actually, we had loads of people watching it online. It was really fun to do. Thank you so much for being part of it. And Justin, what have you been up to? You've been traveling. Are you at home? What's going on?
I haven't. Oh no, wait. I was about to say I haven't been traveling since our last podcast, but I have. I was in Dallas for Labor Day weekend visiting some friends, and just boat time, family time. It's great.
That's cool. And who's going to HR Tech next week? I'm going. Jocelyn,
I'm going to.
Rhona, you going to be there?
No, I'm sitting this one out this year.
We're going to miss you. Yeah. But we will definitely, the two of us will be there. Okay, so let's move on to our first segment, which is Points and Pints. So if you've not watched the show before, you're unfamiliar with this segment, what we do is we pour ourselves a delicious drink or beverage of our choosing, if we have one, and then discuss the things that we've seen in the news this week. So I am departing with tradition. I normally drink alcohol-free beer at this point, but I thought I'd change it up. And I have alcohol-free cider. There we are. Traditional English cider, 0%. I've never had alcohol-free cider before, so this could be an interesting experiment or disaster. Rhona, what do you have this week?
Well, I forgot to chill my new drinks, so I'm going with my trusty Trader Joe's ginger beer that everyone knows I love.
We're going to have to get sponsored by Trader Joe's.
I know, really. We really need to.
The endless product placement, and you always like them as well, which is good. Justin, do you have anything?
I do, yes. So I cheated a little bit because I had some beforehand. I couldn't help myself, but it's Natalie's strawberry lemonade. So something really cool. Natalie's, they make all different types of juices, and they are the town over from me in Fort Pierce, Florida.
Oh, cool.
And I was in San Diego for a conference last month and found Natalie's orange juice there, which was just so random in this hotel in San Diego. So it's nice to see that they're distributing across the country because they're amazing. So if you see Natalie's in the supermarket, do yourself a favor and grab some.
There we are. No, that wasn't sponsored either. That was amazing. Just an outpouring of consumer goodness for all of this stuff. So let's see if Thatcher's Zero cider gets the same kind of endorsement from me. So I'm just going to open this. There we are. And I'll just pour it. Oh, it's all a bit fizzy. See what's going on. Right. I can't even remember whether I like cider. I've not had cider for so long. It's my first alcohol-free cider. That's actually okay. Strangely though, it tastes just like sparkling apple juice, which I guess is exactly what alcohol-free cider is. So I'm not quite sure. I might just buy some sparkling apple juice next time. But That's okay. That's okay. That's passable. Everything else, you both tried everything else because you're massively endorsing it. So that's good. So let's move on to the first news item of the week, and this is something that has dominated certainly all the conversations that I've seen on LinkedIn. OpenAI announces AI-powered hiring platform to take on LinkedIn. Now, as far as I can see, opinion seems to kind of fall into two camps over this. There are people who are saying, well, you know what, this is just like Google for Jobs all over again, big player, playing outside of their kind of core market. It's not really going to amount to very much. And then there are people who seem to have the polar opposite opinion that this is the end of HR tech and TA tech as we know it, and everything is going to change radically. So I did a kind of bit of research to see where I stand on these two positions. And I'll be interested to see what the others think. But if you dig into the press release. First of all, it doesn't really mention LinkedIn at all. I think that's just a great kind of gift for the press because OpenAI, obviously, Microsoft is one of their big funders. Microsoft owns LinkedIn. Join the dots makes a great headline about OpenAI kind of going for its investors product. They don't really mention that. What they talk about in the blog where this was described was actually certifying people in AI skills, and then using their platform to help connect those people with companies. Now, that's kind of all they've said, but obviously there's a huge amount of scope here for interpretation and imagining what the future might look like. So where does everyone stand on this one? Jocelyn, what are your thoughts on this revelation?
Well, first I thought it was really interesting that there was conflict between some of their investors like Microsoft and what they were trying to accomplish. I think also LinkedIn's co-founder, the press release said, is an early investor of OpenAI as well. So that was interesting to me. I'd be really curious to know whether or not there's any type of synergy in the future, or whether or not there is a conversation between them around, hey, what's the strategy going to be long term? How does this impact LinkedIn? So that will be really interesting to see unfold. But what I really loved about this was its focus on education around AI. The certification process will start late 2025, I believe. And I wanted to take it when I read this press release. And I think everybody should. So, you're right. There's tons of room for it to be more than just what the press release is saying. But what it's starting to do right now, as a company, OpenAI, they're in more of a unique position to be able to offer certifications like that. And upskilling is so huge. We haven't really seen a ton of upskilling from HR departments quite yet to prepare for AI in the workforce. And so for an organization like OpenAI to come out and do that is pretty cool.
Yeah, I think there's a definite narrative around just the way it was written. It's kind of really sort of playing into that, that narrative about skills. Perhaps it's an attempt to offset a lot of the, government fears about jobs being lost. Whatever that might be. Rhona, what are your thoughts on this one?
I mean, I agree with what you guys are saying. I think the positioning against LinkedIn was really just for clicks. It really, as we went through further in the article, we saw that it's not. I love the whole certifying. I think it's great that a AI company is going to be or wants to be at the leading this certification process because really that's who should be doing it. So I love that piece of it. And I mean, at the end of the day, I don't think LinkedIn is really trying to position themselves as this like job matching type of thing anymore. At least that's my perception from what they're doing. So I really think that it's not like them playing against each other. And yeah, I love the certification piece, the like having actual education on this because this is really what's needed.
I suppose the speculation here is if it's more than that, and they're kind of going to expand on that and kind of entry into the into the kind of the whole space. I mean, that is interesting because we know that lots of people already using AI in job applications. People use it for research. People try and use it to look for jobs. It's becoming kind of a default thing that people try and use for everything. I think people use AI. So, I mean, do we think that there is potential there for it to expand? What could be some of the implications? Do we think, Rhona? What do you think?
I think for sure there is potential. I mean, but I think let's hear from a expert in this area. I think our guest wants to come in a little early and say a few comments about this, and I think we really need to hear what Rebecca has to say.
Okay, cool. You see, you're stealing my questions now that I was going to ask her in the interview. I'll have to write some more in the back. Rebecca, what do you think about this? Is it is it just a kind of a press release, or is it something more significant?
So first of all, I was thrilled by this news. I was giddy when I read this because it was validating a vision that I had sort of was thinking about for the future of recruiting, though it leapt like maybe 3 years, farther ahead than I thought it was going to be. So first of all, there's a lot of like noise that this is OpenAI becoming like an application tourist. I'm going to go investigate if I can make some money off of this area or workflow within the world. I actually think they're very well suited to do it for one reason, and that is that recruiting as a process, we use this quote all the time, is 82% administrative. So theoretically, if you took all the admin out of doing recruiting, you'd be reducing a recruiting workflow to 4 different decision points and conversations, most importantly. Like first conversation, what do we actually need? Like, we should probably plan like what our workforce should look like, what skills we're going to need in order to grow as a business in the future. It's a conversation. Second conversation. Well, if we need that, there's these 10 people. Who should we talk to? We should probably pick one and have an interview with that person or that group of people. Third conversation, I like you. I want to make you an offer. You're the person that I think is going to work to really accelerate my business forward. And last, this is what I think you're going to need to be successful in my world, like success planning, onboarding, like that whole world. So if you reduce recruiting to 4 conversations, then hiring becomes just that, an organization dialoguing with a group of candidates. And who is better at conversations than OpenAI? All they are doing is building conversations between you and a wealth of knowledge and understanding that's scoured across the internet. If they were to open that or successfully open that up to company level data or insight that was more siloed within a business to business application arena, that could be actually quite fascinating. And what they know about people and the commitment that some people have demonstrated toward learning and growing within their platform is a level of adoption that some of their other competing platforms have not gotten, including LinkedIn. So I think it validates sort of a theme that I've been thinking about, that hiring will just become a back and forth conversation and that all the other things will be automated by agents. Now, that being said, employment law is a thing. So
well, yes, absolutely.
And I've built 3 applicant tracking systems and it's not that easy. So do I think they're going to power through this? Like overnight? I don't. And there's one thing that told me in their press release that maybe they haven't totally digested how difficult it's going to be, and that vision around hiring it is a conversation, is they called it a jobs platform. If hiring were to become a conversation, then the container that we think about as a job, just like the container of a resume in what a candidate knows, these would be broken. And so it wouldn't be people finding jobs. It would be people having work, and these people can do work. And so the fact that they used the word jobs over and over again tells me that they either are thinking about it, but they aren't ready to say it, but that job as an object is something that becomes too static in a conversational world. And so like, I will see where this goes, but I actually think it's very cool. And I think they will chip away at a certain piece of the market around it. And I love the certification angle. I think that is something that they could do quite well.
Yeah, 100%. I think the potential here is just enormous, and it's kind of almost frustrating that it's just bounded in a very specific short press release. But we can but speculate. Rebecca, you have to stay around for the next article now, as you're here. So we were talking about LinkedIn. So let's talk about let's look at the next one. So LinkedIn takes on hiring scams with recruiter verification. I mean, I think this has to be welcome news. We've seen so much fraud in recruiting, and it just seems to be getting worse. We've got deep fakes. We've got all these kind of things going on. My WhatsApp is just full of people offering me jobs that I didn't apply to, and all kinds of spam like that. So I think anything that can be done to deal with hiring scams has got to be good news, right? Rhona, what do you think?
Yeah, it's definitely good news for the scams. They are getting out of control, and it's really high time that LinkedIn really did some more verification. There's lots of people claiming they work at places that they don't work, not just recruiting in general, but just in general jobs. So it's really a good thing. My thing is, we'll have to see how this is executed, because there is we do have fractional people, we have independent people who are legit recruiters. So making sure that they don't get impacted by this, I think we'll just have to wait and see. But overall, it's definitely great news and something that needed to happen a long time ago, because it's really, really hard for candidates to know. Like, even I, who've been in this industry, been a recruiter, sometimes it's like, this looks legit, but you have to like really look for the signs to make sure that it's not. So I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, I think that was one of the things that I thought of first. Actually, people with fractional jobs or self-employed people. Does this verification with a company email address, does that actually work? And as you say, there is still so many fake profiles and crazy things going on LinkedIn. There's still a long way to go. Jocelyn, your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I totally agree with Rhona. It's interesting. We just hired a CSM, and he told me that he had received a couple fake job offers, and then one of them actually asked him to send money for shipping for his laptop or something like that. And he felt like that was weird, of course. And so he kind of backed out of it. And so it's a shame that kind of stuff is happening. In the article, it says that LinkedIn will verify employees or individuals by their company email address. And I guess one thing is that these fake recruiters could also create fake companies with fake email addresses. So, how else do you verify that somebody is who they say they are, and that they are in fact an individual that would be legitimately participating in the recruiting process in some way, shape, or form. So I'll be curious to see what happens there.
And Rebecca, recruiting fraud, obviously a big issue. I mean, how do you deal with that kind of thing?
Well, I'll say, though, I appreciate that they're taking this step to do a verification. To everyone's point here on the call, it's not foolproof. Like, it's very easy to circumvent that process. The reality is, we see a lot of businesses experiencing the overtaking of their business accounts by fraudulent actors simply because users within their own company use password 12345 to log in to their corporate email or to get into an application like Smart Recruiters. It is genuinely fascinating that still is the problem that it is, given all that we know. And then what's ending up happening, and I think there was actually recently a breach that was announced from Workday on this point too. The reason was a corporate, a corporate employee was breached because they were using the same password across like 17 different platforms. A fraudulent actor was able to access their account and then use Workday to email on behalf of that individual all of these emails to candidates that they'd bought on the dark web. So I think that solving this problem starts at the corporate level. If you don't have SSO, you should turn on SSO. You should turn on multi-factor authentication. If you as a business do not want to be masqueraded as this fake company and send the wrong signals to the market about your brand and who you are, because that's what these people are doing, then protecting yourself is, I think, starting place one. And that alone will cut down a lot on a lot of the noise, in addition to some of these features.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think that a lot of the time it is things like that's driving it. At the same time, we do have these crazy deep fakes, and I've seen sort of examples of those being used for fraud. Crazy world we live in. It's a bit of a situation. So let's move on to the Situation Room. What do you have for us this week?
All right. So today I'm diving into a recent headline that's stirring up conversations in the HR communities and the tech communities. There was a bank employee in the UK who was let go after her role was replaced by AI. But that's not even the issue. The situation really highlights that there's not just a rapid advancement of technology, but there's also a very real human cost that comes with it. What was the issue was that she was tasked with programming this AI bot to replace her without knowing that that was happening. So, when I talk about very real human cost, that's something that employers really have to consider. So, if you're curious about the potential impact of AI on jobs and how HR professionals should approach these changes, then stick with me for a minute. So, to provide some context here, the article was written by The Sun, and it shares the story of a bank employee who was let go after her role was replaced by AI, as I've mentioned. So, the technology was used, the technology used was actually designed to perform the same tasks as her. And the organization there decided that the algorithm could just do it faster, cheaper, and more efficiently. So, it kind of, Matt, raises a big question as AI continues to evolve. How do we ensure that people don't get left behind in the process? So, as HR professionals, it's really critical for us to balance the opportunities technology offers with the responsibility that we have to our workforce. We need to ask ourselves, how can we ensure that AI implementation doesn't feel like a sudden betrayal for employees? Or how do we provide reskilling opportunities, which we've talked a lot about on this show, along with a clear path forward for those whose roles might be at risk? So, if we look at this example, we see how AI is shifting from being a support tool to now being a direct competitor in the job market, which is really interesting. And I don't think that, I think that there's been a lot of back and forth as to whether it is a support tool or a direct competitor. And I think it can be both. So, we've talked for years about automation, and now we're kind of seeing this happen real time. And the challenge for HR leaders is to integrate AI in ways that make jobs better, not just cheaper. So we can't ignore the emotional and social aspects of this change. Losing a job because of AI can feel like a loss of human value, especially when the transition isn't handled with empathy and transparency. So, this is where HR's role becomes critical. It's not just about cutting costs or boosting efficiency with AI, it's about managing that change in a way that's human centered. So, again, we've talked about this a lot as well. Change management strategies need to be more robust than ever. And we need to ensure that there are open lines of communication between employees and management, along with providing clear retraining or redeployment options. And I think as an HR practitioner, the most important thing is fostering a culture that sees technology as an ally to human work, not necessarily a replacement to it.
Yeah, I mean, really, it's an interesting, it's an interesting situation. Really, really interesting thoughts there. I think the thing that stood out for me first of all was the bank made, I think it was 45 people redundant and replaced them with this chatbot. The chatbot didn't work properly, and they had to rehire some of them. So I think that there's a bit there about the kind of the hype of efficiency and AI replacing people, kind of getting a bit unstuck when it hit reality and customer complaints and all that kind of stuff. So that says to me, I mean, I don't know the company involved, but that says to me something about the way that they were trying to think about this or or implement this. So I think that was the first thing. However, this is a real issue. I know other people who have been in situations like this where they've effectively trained the AI that has replaced their job or some of their job. And I think you're absolutely right, because it's going to be a really big issue moving forward, and it has to be handled properly. And we have to really think about people's jobs and retraining and the human side of this, because I can just see this happening time and time again, stirring up huge resentment against those companies and those brands, and just not really being just kind of being very very, very toxic, basically. I mean, what's your advice to HR people who are in this situation where they know that things are being replaced by AI, and people aren't necessarily being told the truth, or the company's not being transparent with them? And where does that put a kind of an HR practitioner in that sort of situation?
Yeah, I mean, look, organizations ultimately, in my opinion, are responsible here as employers. So, what's really important as an HR leader is to really gain influence and buy in with the leadership team to help them understand that this isn't just about profit margins or efficiency gains, right? Like, we need to build strategies that humanize the integration of AI in the workplace. And there's no doubt AI will transform industries, but how we handle that transformation will define the future of work. So it's critical we do it right. I mean, ultimately, AI isn't the enemy. How we use it, how we communicate about it is what will really make or break its successful integration into our workplaces. So, if we're proactive as HR leaders, thoughtful, compassionate in our approach, if we can create a future where AI and human workers can thrive together, then we really have this opportunity to lead the charge in the transformation.
Yeah, and I think this is the big danger, isn't it? It's like if AI is going to make everyone 30% more efficient, the temptation from organisations is to cut 30% of their headcount and do the same thing. And I suppose there's a path there about just making the company amazing and more efficient, and really getting more out of the people who are there. So it's just sort of taking that, looking at that kind of option, I suppose.
Yep, I'd say so.
Mm,
Yeah.
mm. Absolutely. Well, I think this is one that's going to run and run. So I would not be surprised if we're not back here talking about it very soon. But I think that was really valuable advice. So thank you very much, Jocelyn, for that. And well, let's move on to our guest. If she's there, which I can see she is off stage, but she's just not on stage at the moment. So if we could just swap the graphics around so I can talk to her, that would be great. Or not. Okay. Okay. So anyway, I'm just going to fill in while we just deal with this slight technical issue. Even the best shows, the best live shows, have technical issues. We're just doing this to prove that this show is in fact coming to you live. We've got a new background as well. What does everyone think of the new background? Do you like it? It's kind of moving. It's dynamic. It's going on. And anyway, here she is, Rebecca.
You're one of the best shows. It's all good.
Absolutely, yeah, it was just a test to prove it's really, really live. Well, welcome back, because we saw you literally a couple of minutes ago. But just in the tradition of all good interviews, I'm gonna start from the beginning. And I'm gonna ask you just to introduce yourself and tell everyone what you do in case they kind of missed it earlier.
Sure. My name's Rebecca Carr. I am the CEO of Smart Recruiters. Smart Recruiters is a talent acquisition suite that serves global enterprises around the world. So think your combination of applicant tracking, sourcing, CRM, career sites, onboarding, all the above.
Fantastic stuff. So we were talking kind of earlier in the show about the OpenAI move, what recruiting looks like. Really kind of incisive comments there about hiring being around for conversations and things like that. I want to come back to that in a second, but before I do, I mean, congratulations on the sort of pending acquisition of Smart Recruiters, and I know that you've been interviewed so many times about this and from every sort of different angle. So I'm not going to kind of ask you sort of obvious questions about it. What I'm interested in though is there's obviously a move here towards a much more kind of agentic approach to AI driven approach to talent as a whole across the organization. What does that look like? What is the vision for kind of moving forward with with all of this technology? Where are we going with this? What's the ultimate vision?
Yeah, I mean, so I think there's a couple things that I see, some forces that are upon us as it relates to recruiting tech. Now, Smart Recruiters focuses on recruiting tech. We don't extend down into performance and learning. But as you mentioned, SAP intends to acquire us, which will give us access to an ecosystem of understanding around some of these large organizations, around what their workforce looks like after they start on day one, and how that data thus informs how one recruits and what great talent looks like, and what benchmark should be in order to get great talent that is retained for many, many years is truly exceptional. I also think that historically recruiting tech it sits on a mountain of data. There's a lot of candidate application data, there's interview management data, there's offer and compensation benchmarking that sits there. And because the core HR platforms haven't historically doubled down in recruiting as a workflow, they're very good at core HR. They've gone very deep in performance. They've gone very deep in learning in some scenarios. But recruiting, very different workflows, starting to interact with the consumer. It's not just the business user now and the employee user, but there's a consumer and the candidate. They haven't leaned into this workflow. And thus there's been a category of best of breed recruitment vendors that have stood alone and just integrated at the point of offer acceptance into these HR systems. I think that now with our potential acquisition, with the acquisition of Paradox and by Workday, and even HiredScore by Workday previously, and some of the other potential acquisitions that have been rumored around the market, I think what you're seeing is core HR go, wow, how much power can we get out of our own data set when we layer on that of the applicant universe into our workflow? And if we're able to do that and normalize those insights, it could actually be very easy for us to shift the hiring dialogue, not just the hiring dialogue, but also the employee dialogue with the organization, to one that is much more proactive and insightful and faster and more efficient. I guess they're the same thing, faster and efficient, but more conversational. And more likely in the flow of work than in all of these big HR systems where you have to log into multiple things in order to sort of gather enough insight to make a decision. And I think that as AI as a technology becomes more and more advanced, and ecosystems become more prevalent. So big organizations like Smart Recruiters or SAP or Workday or Oracle start to open themselves more aggressively to external data sources through APIs, something that they haven't historically done. We're only going to continue to empower that employee company dialogue, not in a back office system where you need to know all the buttons and you need to go through some webinar in order to figure it out, but like actually in the flow of work, in Slack, in Teams, on SMS, in ServiceNow, in the platforms that you use every single day. So I think that this is a signal. Our acquisition was a signal. I think Workday's acquisitions are a signal that strategy is something that they believe in.
Yeah, absolutely. So much to dig into there. I want to let's dig into the sort of the UI aspect of this, as you mentioned. So, accessing all this stuff through conversations, and I know this is something that Smart Recruiters have been focusing on a lot this year, in terms of how people access the system and making it conversational. But we're kind of like we're gonna move away from a lot of things that people have used for a really long time in terms of, dashboards and processes and all those kind of things. I mean, just paint us a picture about what the new world of using this software is gonna look like.
Well, I'll tell you a secret, Matt. And that is that they haven't been using them. Like these big back office tools. It's funny to say, but like these big back office tools, like recruiters use them. Don't get me wrong, but like recruiter is its own independent persona that is like driving. It's their job to wake up and think about this. But to say that like hiring managers have been consistently logging in, or that employees have been going to these employee portals and applying to jobs, yes, I'm sure it happens in pockets and there are demonstrated use cases. But the reality is that a lot of stuff has been happening offline because people don't have an interest in using things that aren't in their, like within their like purview, their immediate purview. And so when you look at the type of activity, a lot of it is very, just very kind of concise. You don't get a lot of real detail around interviews. The quality of interviews and ratings and things like that is not as strong as you would think it is. And actually, we are all going to benefit from moving ourselves to the flow of work, because you will see faster adoption of some of these core workflows, which will help you as an organization move at a better clip. Will give you better data to drive the right insights, to tell you where the roadblocks are, versus right now what is happening is recruiters are just spending all their days like chasing people on Slack and Teams to provide a review. And then in some cases, they're pasting the review in. The hiring manager isn't even coming through. So I don't want to say that no one uses the systems, but I actually think we'll get better system adoption by moving in this direction.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
And on the other side of this, what about the job seekers? Because particularly at the moment with global economies being bad, and unemployment numbers going up and all this kind of things, the job seekers are having a kind of a hard time. They're dealing with a lot of these kind of legacy systems and legacy processes and all that kind of stuff. How are things going to improve from a job seeker perspective?
Well, I'm hoping that if nothing more from the AI movement, transparency is the one thing I'm most excited about for candidates. Like this breaking, Alin, who's on my team, often calls this like the breaking of the fourth wall. Like, how do people understand when they approach a business, their level of qualification for the job? And we are not transparent anywhere in the world culturally in exposing that to people. It's a black box. And I do think either through conversational interfaces or frankly through post-application data and insight that comes to candidates after they complete an application and submit it, I would love for candidates to understand how they truly are being reviewed against an opportunity, if there are better opportunities within that organization for them and why. And if not there, what are the 4 or 5 other places that you can go look that actually are really fitting of your skills, or the certifications you can go take to quickly make sure that you can present yourself as a higher quality candidate. And today, a lot of the matching products that you see on the market are very business facing. I'm going to score you when all these thousands of applications come and hit my workflow. But no one shows those scores to candidates. If a candidate knew that they had a strong match, or they could edit or augment or provide additional data in support of their application, you'd see better quality data moving through the system. You'd see people with a better understanding of why they got a job versus why they didn't. You'd see people applying to more of the right opportunities for them. And that I am hopeful will come out of this moment. And frankly, I think compliance and regulation will force it in an effort to ensure that we are holding ourselves to a certain standard of equity and inclusion, which is extremely important, obviously, especially when there's these black boxes all around you.
Oh, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you. Couldn't agree with you more there. And so is this the end of the resume as we know it?
I think so. I've been saying for a bit, it's static. And the reality is we are all consuming information at an incredible pace. I think about like even folks listening to the Alder Hour, they are learning something about the market and where it's going right now that they didn't know 39 minutes ago. But where is that captured? Where is that strategic angle like documented in their professional portfolio? It is nowhere. And so I do think that our activity around the web, how we engage with certification, the types of questions, the ask that I listened to a podcast the other morning around the justification around the insanity defense from like the early 1800s. So now I like know something about the history of like law back in the day, which is kind of random, but it tells the market something about what I'm fascinated. I'm fascinated by proving theories wrong, and how does that make me a different type of leader? I think that is nowhere on my resume, but could be particularly exciting to certain organizations, and I'm looking forward to that being exposed in a more dynamic way.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that I mean, especially in the world that we live in, now, it's like we just need a better way. I've asked you this question before, actually. I think I asked it on my podcast, maybe sort of 18 months, sort of 2 years ago, which was about the role of the recruiter. How's that going to change? Has anything happened that's changed your mind on that? How do you think sort of talent acquisition itself is going to evolve as a role?
I was actually riffing on this as part of some of my 3-year vision planning a couple weeks ago, and trying to come up with a name for what I think the recruiter will become. I don't think the recruiter as we know it today will exist in the future. I think the people that do recruiting will absolutely continue to contribute, but I think they will be much more advisory than they are today. Like, if I think about the first time I went and found a job, I like walked in, it was like some like country club spa thing, and I wanted to be a lifeguard. And I like walked in and I had a conversation with somebody, and they asked me some questions, and I filled out an application, and then they called me back the next day, and I got the job, and I started that weekend. And I think about how simple that moment was and how complicated it has become in a world so inundated with technology. And I think that we have lost the human in finding jobs, especially as you go to like more entry level positions where there might be high turnover or high volume. And that's very unfortunate, because hiring is the one relatable experience that all of us have around the world. All of us have held a job. We've all felt what it feels like to get that job, to start on day one, to lose your job. I mean, the sheer volume, and yet we've sort of transcribed it into this like very automated workflow instead of one that is a very big decision for people. They are putting their trust in an organization because that's going to be how they get how they make a livelihood, how they bring money home to their family and feed their children and develop their careers and feel fulfilled and bring purpose. And I think that recruiter as a role will become more about relationships again, around validating the 4 decision points, making sure that they are meeting an ethical and responsible standard, supporting inputs that drive the improved results of those decision points, and just building relationships, communicating cultures, expressing brand, developing individuals. I used to be a recruiter, and that's what I loved, talking to people. And unfortunately, it's not that anymore.
Yeah, and I think it's going back to that is just so key, and also people need advocates for them in the process. I think that's the other thing. I suppose it's almost like if a plane could fully take off and land by itself, would you still get on it without a pilot? Probably not. I think it's a similar kind of thing. A final question for you, and also going back to the conversation that we were having in the kind of the Points and Pints segment earlier. Where is all this going? So we were talking about OpenAI's announcement; they might be getting into this space. How do you see things evolving from the point that we've just been talking about them evolving to, going beyond that, particularly with players like OpenAI coming into the space with what they do?
Yeah, I mean, said very simply, I think that the way that the construct of work, I was talking about the container of a job, the way people like myself, I'm a CEO and I do fiscal planning. And I think, oh, well, here are my goals. I want to grow X percent. I want to have this kind of profitability. I want to have these types of key results. I think that today we make these assumptions that in order to do those things, we need these 12 containers, and those containers are jobs that people fit into. And the reality is that as my results change over the course of a year, as maybe I run into roadblocks or volatility hits me in a different way, I've hired and I have people fulfilling each of those jobs, but it might be that I don't necessarily need them in the same construct as I needed before. It's not dynamic. And so what do? I end up changing my organization to align the work to the people I have versus finding the right people to do the work that I need. And that is just because of the way that we think of traditional employment. I think that if I was in a flash forward into my dream world, agents would tell me the types of people or the types of people that have the skills and capabilities that I need to get a job done right now, that it might change the nature of what that employment looks like. And that if I were some candidate sitting out in the market, I would have an agent that's been looking for these opportunities for me, that I would wake up in the morning and go, hey, there's these 4 or 5 ones that I really think you should check out that we actually need you to work on tomorrow. And it's very different from gig, because that would imply short term. I think some of these jobs are actually much bigger and much longer term and much more permanent than you might see at a Fiverr or an Upwork. But they are dynamic in that this expectation is set that I am there to do a very specific job. And when that job is done, I can either be a fit for doing the next job they need, or maybe I go and get a job somewhere else. And so the fluidity of the market and the opportunities that exist, I think, will increase absolutely tenfold. And I do think this traditional process of I need to search online for all the jobs that are right and then apply to each of them will go away. And that it will be candidates will have agents working on their behalf, companies will have agents working on their behalf. And together, those agents will collaborate on building an ecosystem of work that's much more dynamic than it is today.
And that's certainly a future that I can completely buy into. Rebecca, thank you very much for joining us. So let's move on to trending or ending.
Hey, Matt. So,
Hey, I thought it was just going to be you. I was having a drink then. You caught me by surprise. Anyway, Rhona, what do you have? What do you have for us?
I asked our producer, Alan, for a last minute change because I think we're probably going to have our first on air debate, or maybe you're going to agree with me. Let's see. So,
Okay.
Alan does an amazing job of finding what's really trending out there and what people are talking about. And he was on Reddit and he saw that there's this medical professional on Recruiting Hell that with 4 years of experience, and he's applying to coffee shops with their high school resume. The post was all about how they're not able to find jobs and they're dumbing down their resume in order to apply to these jobs that they are overqualified for, right? And then in the comments, that's where it was really getting real. Everyone was sharing their experience. Software engineer with 20 years of experience writing a cover letter, which was pure fiction, about how his dad used to own hotels and he used to help their cleaning as a kid and all of this. PhDs working as hospital cleaners. And the thing is, they're not even getting these jobs. They're being rejected for being overqualified. But I'm not mad at these people. They're doing what they have to do to survive. When the system fails you, you adapt or you starve. And that's just the reality of capitalism. And also there's this whole who defines overqualification. If you have the skills, then you're qualified and no one should be deciding if you get bored, etc. But we've spoken about this before. What I want to tackle today is why this is happening. The August jobs report was recently released here in the US, and 22,000 jobs were added. That's way, way less than what was supposed to. That's the worst in 15 years outside of the pandemic. Unemployment is at 4.3%. And the companies, they're choosing to use AI to cut cost instead of hiring humans, right? I think this isn't about uncertainty, it's about greed. Because we bail these companies out, we give them tax breaks, and why do we do this? Because their job is to create jobs. That's the deal, right? That's literally why we subsidize them. While most corporate tax policy really isn't structured as a direct job for breaks exchange, many incentive programs, like from state economic development deals, federal manufacturing subsidies, like they do include employment targets or expectations. So I'm not oversimplifying things, but companies are pocketing these benefits while using AI to eliminate jobs. And that's what's forcing people to do this. And yes, I understand the whole political uncertainty makes companies cautious, but you can't really cry uncertainty while posting record profits because still that is happening. You can't take society's money and then abandon your responsibility to create jobs. I think it's a choice. I think companies are choosing shareholders over humans. And the result is we have engineers, doctors pretending they never went to college just to pay rent. So, what do you think, Matt? Is overqualified professionals hiding their achievements to survive while companies pocket incentives a thing that's going to continue? Is it trending? Is it ending? Because I think unless companies remember why we subsidize them, this is going to get worse before it gets better.
Yeah, I mean, I think you make some really really important points there. It yeah, it's an interesting time. There's a couple of things that I've kind of seen to feed into this. I was reading an article by a former UK government advisor, actually, earlier in the week, where he was saying that basically growth by increasing headcount is over, and it's growth by increasing revenue, productivity, all those kind of things, and exploring the economic and political implications of that, which are absolutely vast. And I think that's the place where just connections are just not being made at the moment, because I still think we're very, there's a, I think it's confusing at the moment to know exactly what job losses are because or people not hiring are because of the economy and the political situation, and which of them are to do with AI. So kind of referencing back to what we were talking about earlier with the bank that laid all the people off and then had to re-employ them again because their chatbot didn't work. But it doesn't really matter because the AI is the kind of the multiplying force moving forward. So I think that kind of blindsides lots of governments who kind of sort of work on an operating system, a mental operating system that if companies are growing, they're growing headcount. And that's a fundamental that AI is potentially going to change. And that needs a lot of kind of rethinking. I think the other thing is a lot of people will very often kind of throw in, well, we've always had technology, it's always created new jobs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And if you kind of study what's actually happened in the past, now I'm neither an historian or an economist, so I might have got the the name of this wrong, but after the Industrial Revolution in the UK, obviously that displaced a huge amount of jobs. That were done by people that were now done by machines. And when you look at it in the long-term trend, it's like, oh yeah, but new jobs were created, the country was more prosperous, all that kind of stuff. There was a gap in the middle. I don't know how long this gap was, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, whatever it was, where that was not the case, where people were displaced, where poverty went up, where people didn't have jobs. And it took a long time for those kind of benefits to kind of appear. And I think that's the thing that people kind of miss when they look at that. So yeah, it's a kind of big issue. I'm not going to disagree with you. I thought I was. Or maybe you hoped I was. It's just a question. It's a question of what happens about it, and it's our government's going to wake up to this. As you say, if companies are being subsidized, which all companies are to a greater or lesser
Yeah.
extent, is the onus on them to employ people? Ultimately, if people don't have jobs, they don't have money to spend, and then capitalism falls apart. So that's something that's going to have to be addressed as well. And yeah, it's still difficult to see anyone sort of making sensible kind of moves around this. I thought that the OpenAI announcement that we've been talking about for the whole show was interesting because it seemed to me that also that was almost part of their defense, that they were doing things to create jobs or help people find jobs with their skill thing. So yeah, it's kind of a big issue. I mean, how do we change it? What's the answer?
I don't have the answer. I think really it's just businesses really understanding their role in society and why they get some of the breaks that they do, and the government enforcing it. And also, let's be honest, the government needs to create an environment where companies can't say that because of the uncertainty, then they're not hiring and all of these things. But there needs to be regulations on these things. There needs to be regulation on how AI, you can't be just replacing entire departments with AI and then rehiring them like we've seen everyone else do. It's a bigger conversation. I think it starts with having these conversations for real and just realizing that this is a thing and that everything, I can't be the only person just here sitting in my office seeing where this is headed. There's way smarter people than me out there, economists and all of the people that do this type of work, that I would hope are probably seeing where this is going. I think we really need to speak up and have these conversations with the people that need to be had and come to some decisions.
Yeah, I think there's also a lot of governments will see job numbers in the aggregate rather than the detail. So it's almost like, well, we've lost all these jobs here, but we created all these jobs here. And it's like, well, actually, the skill set you need to do those jobs is very different from the skill set you need to do these jobs. And there's nothing there to bridge the gap. So, I think that there should be an onus on organizations who are moving this direction to or the ability to kind of reskill people or help people or really kind of define what what's going on. And I think that the current sort of economic situations are just kind of accelerating us towards the point where something has to happen around this. So I guess we'll just have to do what we can and wait and see.
Yes, I agree.
Absolutely. And on that on that note, Rhona, thank you so much for bringing up that really important topic. I think it's something that we just need to talk about and keep talking about until we can get some sort of some proper thinking on this, and governments and education systems and all that kind of stuff take this stuff seriously, because change is happening very, very quickly. So that brings us to the end of another show. It was a great show. Thanks to Rhona, thanks to Jocelyn, thanks to Rebecca for being a brilliant guest, thanks to Alan for producing the whole thing. There are huge amounts of other shows in the Purple Acorn network. So we've got Rhona's show, Workfluencer, the HR Morning Show, From the Desk, My First Job, From Ecstasy, and many, many, many more. So make sure you go over to the Purple Acorn website or LinkedIn page and give them a follow. And you can catch up with all those great shows. You can also, as I said earlier, find this show as a podcast on Spotify, Apple, or anywhere else that you might find quality podcasts. If you want to listen to my longer form interviews, head over to recruitingfuture.com or find it again wherever you listen to your quality podcasts, and also search for the Alder Hour while you're there. We will be back next week. I'm going to be in Vegas. So if you're HR tech, I look forward to seeing you. Come and say hello. Back next week. Already looking forward to it. This is Matt Alder, clocking out.